We're going to go getting started. So my name is Braxton Treverrow. Today we're going to be talking about Active Directory and the PowerShell module. Just to give a brief background on myself, I like to classify as an active student. I've done the whole bachelor's, master's degree and all that. Loved it, glad it's over, but I really enjoy the non-traditional route of being a student, of going on CBT Nuggets, going on YouTube, find a problem, try to solve it. That's what I really enjoy. I've been in the IT field for 7 years, aka I can Google very well. I do mostly personal PC support. I've worked on a help desk, technical support, and a support manager leading support efforts at a financial institution. So just a small background. My background in PowerShell is related to my job working at a financial institution, supporting the employees. So anything you would encounter on help desk, I utilize PowerShell for. And then more specifically tonight, we're going to talk about Active Directory and how I utilize that and do a brief synopsis of what Active Directory is, the module, and kind of just go through it. Here we go. Also, anytime throughout the presentation, if you want to jump in, ask a question, please go for it. And and if you see anything wrong or something I can improve on, please let me know. All right, so just to give a background of what Active Directory is, I'm sure everyone has at least had a job. They've signed into a computer, they've accessed a computer. Most likely they've utilized Active Directory, another system, to sign into the computers at the company. Active Directory is an object-oriented database. So essentially a user account has multiple attributes, a computer has multiple attributes, and it's storing it in a database for you to administer at a company. It gives you the ability, like I said, to manage the objects in directory and then be able to set up the directory in the way that the business needs to utilize it. So every organization is going to have their Active Directory set up a little bit different depending on how the organization runs and what makes the most sense. And the IT administrator or IT department, IT folk are going to determine what's the best route for the business. And Active Directory allows you to scale up with your users instead of having a bunch of local accounts or computers. This allows you to manage a domain and manage users, computers, and other objects at a company. Active Directory is an industry standard for a system management tool for the users, computers, objects for managing those guys. What is PowerShell? So my general definition, or how I've been trained / groomed up over the years of how to use PowerShell, the one word that always comes back is like magic. Like it literally can do anything that you think about. If you sit down at a computer, PowerShell can either make that repetitive task more efficient or do anything on the system as either a sysadmin or a help desk technician or any type of IT professional or anyone that's not in IT will allow you to make your job more efficient, any type of task you do. So for example, Active Directory into the module, help desk technicians or support teams utilize Active Directory or sysadmins, network admins, and they have to manage Active Directory, manage the users, the computers. So there's a lot of things that the administrators will set up with PowerShell to automate and to make it more efficient. So we'll go over a couple examples in a couple slides, but PowerShell, it's a command line shell. It's a scripting language to allow you to basically complete magic. One thing that I mentioned earlier was the object-oriented. PowerShell is an object-oriented language, which allows you to do a lot of different things compared to the former, like DOS and your Think Bash, like the languages that are not object-oriented. So when you work at a company, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the object-oriented is key with PowerShell. Alrighty. So I have a lab that I have set up that we're going to get into a second. So I'm going to breeze through some of the slides here and just kind of talk about it. And I want to ask questions to people either on the Zoom meeting or here of how they utilize Active Directory, the Active Directory PowerShell module. So right now I'm just going to get a little brief synopsis. What is the Active Directory PowerShell module? to first understand that, you need to understand what a module is. So a module is basically a bunch of commands combined together that is useful and basically organized in a way where you can present it and share with others. So in this case, Active Directory has a bunch of built-in functions that you can install on your system to manage your Active Directory. Let's see. This allows the administrators to manage your Active Directory in an efficient way, as I've been saying, and that's just the definition from Microsoft of what PowerShell / Active Directory is. You're here, so I'm assuming you understand a little bit of PowerShell and what that is. One thing that how I learn is jumping into things and either labbing it out or having a problem in front of me. So we're gonna pull up a terminal in a bit and have a problem that a business would have and solve it utilizing PowerShell in a fast way instead of using the Active Directory GUI. Different functions that are inside the Active Directory module that I utilize and a support team or different IT shops are going to utilize at larger companies or even smaller companies that have Active Directory. You have search AD account. So it's going to search and find Active Directory accounts. You have unlock AD account. Everyone has probably locked themselves out or has unlocked someone if you work in the IT field. These are useful tools where you don't have to pull up the GUI. You can just utilize the function, jump right into your terminal and unlock it. It also allows you to script and automate things down the road. I didn't go too much into scripting and automation in this. It's more so just some of the functions and how you can utilize them. But you have some get and some set commands. So get is going to be informational, where you can get information about the different objects in Active Directory. So your commons are the users, computers, groups. Can you guys still hear me? Just said mute on, just making sure it's still there. Am I still there, Andrew? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So you have your get and your set commands. I like to throw in the verb noun of the standard of what you would normally see with a function. So get is going to be your action item, and then your noun is going to be what you're working with. You sound digital though. Good digital or bad digital? Yeah, I will try. I'll unplug that cable and plug it back in. How do I sound now? Better. Okay. About the same. Okay. Is it audible? Can you understand said noise? Sounds good. Okay. It's no big deal. Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, these are a couple functions that are inside the Active Directory module that we're going to touch on and work together on. Is LAPS supported in the module? I think there's a module, another module within LAPS, if I remember correctly. But yeah, good question. It's not, yeah. You can use them together, of course, because of what LAPS is. But yeah. And then you have, what was it? Cool. Can they hear that or no? They cannot hear. Okay. We cannot. Okay. Someone said something in the crowd. It was very a good comment. I can't repeat it. All right. We have set, remove object, remove AD group, remove AD computer. These functions allow you to do stuff within PowerShell using the Active Directory module. Again, I go back to the scripting and automation pieces of it. So if you want to disable a bunch of AD objects or users or computers, PowerShell will allow you to do that at scale instead of having to go through the Active Directory management console where it's going to take you a little bit longer to go in there and disable folks. What are some Active Directory functions that you guys find yourself using working in IT? I'll put this on speaker. Someone said set AD account password. What else do we use? Mostly get AD something. Indeed. Yes. Space hyphen tab. Yeah. Someone in the audience that I know / taught me a lot about PowerShell. So similar way, but he basically said that get AD user was his gateway into utilizing PowerShell. So you can go in and see the different hidden properties, which is a lot of what I use it for in my day-to-day and what he also used in his day-to-day. Anyone in Zoom? You guys want to talk? You're on speaker if you want to speak up. Of Active Directory functions you use. Alrighty. Get AD principal group membership. That is a good one. That is you can get the member of, is that what it is? Yeah, cool. Let's see, example of me using that. I used it we were creating new AD groups and I wanted to grab the members of the other AD groups. So we utilize that function to grab the member of, and you can create a script to basically go in and grab the old AD groups and be able to move the memberships over to the new one. And that's just built in Active Directory. AD, same account property. Yes, we will be using that in just a second. That's Bryce. Hello, Bryce. All right. So utilizing the Active Directory PowerShell module, I have created / stolen different functions from some people in this room where I utilize on a daily basis, but it's essentially utilizing the get AD user. So my first example is get user status. So as Sean in the audience was saying earlier, to see attributes that are normally hidden or not easily available in your Active Directory management console, PowerShell can allow you to see those in a more digestible format, and you can format it. That particular one Sean actually created, and I've changed, updated, and made work for me. But that particular function is the one that got me into learning more about PowerShell, because that function in the help desk role that I was in allowed me to unlock accounts, reset passwords, set the account to expire, along with updating the request or the ticket. So I didn't have to go into our ticketing system. That function there connected through I think we were using a BMC product at the time, and it connected and it created the ticket for me. So instead of going into your Active Directory management console, searching the user, going to the account tab, hitting unlock, you would just pull up your PowerShell terminal, do get user status, and then type in the username. If the account was locked out, it would prompt you. You would click a key to unlock it, and then it would prompt you if you wanted to create a ticket. So we're going to document anything we do in the IT world with a request. So that particular function started my journey, and then there was a couple other ones that I created / still use a little bit. Search phone, the get AD filter hyphen property. I use that with a filter on the telephone property. So I can just easily do search phone. And I think I had an alias set up where it was just like PH. So I would do search phone and then type in an extension so I could find who that person was in Active Directory. Instead of going into the phone system, it's not good. Instead of going into the phone system, I could just easily grab it from there. If your phone system isn't connected to Active Directory, if you're not actively updating it, it's nice to have that function to go into it. I've also used it to set AD user. So I had a set phone extension where it had a couple parameters where you type in the username, and then it would update the extension or the telephone property in Active Directory. Find users, I have a quick just search where I can search, and it searches by their first name or last name. It does the display name and the, I think it's given name as well. So if John Smith calls in and all I hear is Smith on the phone and John Smith keeps talking, I can easily just type in Smith as he's talking and be like, okay, he said John, it wasn't Charlie in a different area. So I would use that all the time so I don't have to ask for the person's name again if I got a snippet of what their name was. But use that daily. I have a select object on it where it grabs the name, the SAM account name, the department and title. So I can see who I'm, or understand who I'm talking to and which area of the organization. And then the last one that I use on a daily is get computer information. This one has like a bunch of stuff connected to it that's not really, it does pull from Active Directory, but it grabs the object from Active Directory, and then I use that object to like enter PS session into it to get information about the computer remotely. So I get stuff like online or stuff that's in Active Directory. But these personalized functions are utilized in Active Directory and other modules, but they're ones that I've just created, utilizing some of the Active Directory stuff just to make my job more efficient in my day-to-day. Stuff like I was saying, how I merge stuff together. So different examples of merging stuff with Active Directory and their Microsoft PowerShell management module. Get child item. So sometimes give a real world example. You have departments. A department is normally an attribute in Active Directory. So say you want to create directories based off of departments to create department shares. You could do a get AD user hyphen property department space type select department space hyphen unique, and it would grab all of the department attributes. So you can pull those all together, and then from there, since you're going to create a variable out of that, then you can get down to your get child item. I don't think I put the set item up there, but to create directories. So instead of me right clicking and manually going in and setting the directories, welcome. You're good. Come on in. We're having a party. No worries. Say and learn something if you like. So yeah, so you could pull the attributes using the get AD user, grab the department attribute, and then from there, you have that variable and the object set in your terminal. So you can go in and create a bunch of directories. So instead of right-clicking in a folder, do a new folder and then type in the folder name. This will allow you to grab all the departments, do your new item, space hyphen item type directory, and so on, and to create all that. I have a lab that we're about to pull up that is going to go through a example that I've used recently in the past, and just open up the terminal. Like I said, that's how I like to teach / learn, is to pull it up and show you. Get AD computer and invoke command. You can get objects from Active Directory, so you can work with that object and be able to run actions or run commands on different computers. I use that probably weekly. I used it this morning, reached out to a sysadmin that wanted to help me so dearly, but redirect me and made me do it. And I connected up to a bunch of computers and run a command to try to check in some computers. That's sysadmin in the crowd. It's John. But I was able to do that. I was able to try something before we were going to globally resolve something. I was able to utilize the Active Directory module and your invoke command to run an action to break fix to try to solve something. There's my set item that I did. Enabling, encouraging your peers. Yes, that is what Sean does all the time, which I appreciate. Yes, thank you, John. Say you want to, say Zoom's having an issue on someone's computer. Instead of connecting up to their computer, you can enter PS session, or you can first do a get AD computer, type in their computer name, validate it's an object, and then enter PS session and do a stop, start, restart service. That's something that I'll do, or a stop process. That's something that I'll use often. Or if you have to do it to a lot of computers, you can do a filter in Active Directory with your computers. So say you only want to do a certain subset of computers and you have a naming sequence set up at or in your Active Directory, you can search by a certain keyword in that computer object to be able to restart a certain service or change a registry key, do various things, basically combining the modules together. Creating AD groups, that's what we're gonna do a little tutorial over today. I'm gonna utilize the get AD user. I'm not gonna use the new item, I'm gonna use new AD group. But our scenario, let me see if it's next, okay. So I'm about to pull up the lab, but the scenario that we're gonna like run through tonight is we work at a company. They want, the HR department wants to have email groups set up by department. So we have an Active Directory, a bunch of users, I think there's like 4,000 users in this example. We're going to find the, we're gonna do it by state. So we're gonna, for HR to be able to send out communication by state. So we're gonna create 80 groups and we're gonna generate them by the attribute. We're gonna try to do it in like less than like 5 lines. So instead of manually going in and creating and adding over 4,000 users to the different state groups, we're going to utilize PowerShell to do that. You're going to do it in a bunch of different, utilize PowerShell in a bunch of different ways to make your job easier. This is just one thing that I've done like recently that was extremely useful and where like light bulbs were going off in my head of like, holy cow, I didn't have to add 4,000 users to 80 groups. I use PowerShell. All right. Why I pull this up, I'm going to open it up for questions of any personalized functions that you guys use on your day-to-day with Active Directory or any other cool PowerShell stuff. Take it away, John. What is it?
4,000, that's how many clicks you save.
How many clicks would it be for like in the GUI? So let's see, right click. So it's probably like 10, 12, but also the keystrokes of typing in the names. So we're probably pushing like hundreds of thousands of keystrokes. So we'll be able to do it with like 5 to 10 lines of PowerShell, where we're going to grab the attribute and create the group and then add the people to the group. The lab.
I can answer your question about a function I use regularly.
Thank you.
And that is just get labs password. I wrote my own little wrapper for it that doesn't use the module, that just queries a particular property, give it a computer name. Just simple thing I do regularly, and just wrote a function to make it a little bit simpler and not require the labs module.
Nice. Did you package it up and share it with your coworkers, or do you use it just for yourself?
Use it every day.
Yeah, I shared it.
Nice. Sharing is caring. Nice. I don't think anyone heard that, but someone in the crowd uses Azure, and he was basically comparing how he utilizes the equivalent of get AD or creating AD groups, but using the Azure module of it, which is going to translate over. It's just the, oh, really? Nice. Anyone from Zoom that is out in the Zoom crowd? Any functions you guys use on a day-to-day that utilize the Active Directory module? You're on speaker, so everyone can hear you if you talk.
I added a bunch of stuff to PowerShell so that I could do modules. So I could do get AD user, get my AD user, get user membership.
Nice.
And the beauty of it is that I use tab complete. So I can just say, snip and give me the whole thing. And so, because our usernames are awful, but I just don't know what user's name is. So I can know, hey, Bob, just tab complete that. And I do the same thing for AD computers as well. So I can just tab complete the AD computer and just keep typing. Works.
Yes, that is awesome. I wanted to get the tab complete stuff set up in the lab, but did not get that going. But that stuff is pretty awesome. Anyone else out there? Anyone that I work with out there on Zoom that wants to say anything?
I don't work with you, but I've been there a couple times. I have a couple like little just functions I use. A lot of times we're given just first names and last names, and it just does the filter by first and last name, just a little shorter than having to filter it through get AD user. So that's super helpful for me.
Nice. When you get the user account, what do you do with it normally?
It depends on the request. We don't really have a naming convention, and it's a pretty large environment. And so pretty much it's very rare that there's a unique name. And rather than going back and saying, give me the employee ID of that person, I just search it and can usually whittle it down to who they're talking about.
Nice. It's gonna give one of my coworkers one more time. I wasn't going to call out on them, but all right. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So the lab that I'm using tonight is with Server Academy. I thoroughly enjoy this guy. I stop and start my membership whenever I want to learn something new or break something, but it's like less than, I think it's $20 or $15 a month, but you can stop and go as you use it, but it gives you a bunch of different weird scenarios with Active Directory and problem solve. So in this scenario, this is like an intro to Active Directory. We're not going to go through this, but it goes through like how to create it. It doesn't really show you like how to create it with PowerShell. It wants you to go through the GUI. But I like to use these guys because it gives you a whole user base, and the user base is a lot of people. And they set up a bunch of random user accounts. So here's the 4,000 people or 4,600 people where we're going to go through and do some cool stuff with PowerShell. Alrighty. So earlier when I was talking different functions that I will grab from, the main one that you normally see in an IT department is unlock AD account. So if you click enter, you will get, oh, my bad, not that one. Doing search AD account to be able to find certain accounts. There's some pre-built stuff in here, but your locked one working in an IT department is going to be there. So right now there's only one person locked out of the 4,000. It's probably highly unlikely in a real organization as people are locking themselves out quite frequent. But there's a couple different ways you can go about this. Say you just wanted to get the people's names. You could do a select and grab the name. Say there was some global issue where everyone got locked out of their account. I don't recommend doing this at all unless there is like a global issue, but you can do unlock account, or if there's only one person there, you can do unlock AD account and hit enter. And then when you do that, it's gonna feed the name through, and then when you go back and do the search, it will be gone. So if you have a lot of people unlocked, you're normally not just going to go in there and start unlocking people for security reasons. Maybe the account was locked out because someone's doing something malicious. So you wouldn't want to just go in and start unlocking folks. But say you had the person's name and you found it, you could do AD unlock, and then you can get the person's username, like they're doing, first name, last name, and then you could enter, and it would unlock the person. My get user status function that I mentioned earlier, / stole from John in the audience, what I would do is basically do get user status, and it would grab the person's name, title, department, phone number, manager's name, manager's phone number. It would display all the information, and if the account was locked out, it would prompt you if it was unlocked, or to unlock it or to reset it. So example, John that made that script, I took the stuff out that I didn't really want, put stuff in there, kept stuff, and then updated as the module or as that function progressed and our team progressed, moving different ticketing systems, updated the API piece for the ticketing system on that guy, so it's still documenting when you do complete an action. So you have search AD account, unlock account, and our famous get AD user. We're going to do filter, just do a star, and there's all 4,000 people. I'm going to cancel that out, but earlier I mentioned our scenario is we want to create some groups based off of what state the person is in, so we can provide to the HR department, and we'll connect the email. I'm not going to do the email piece of it, but we'll create the group, do mail enabled, and then we can give this to our HR department so they can email by state. So if you have a large organization, there's a lot of states, this is useful, so you don't have to worry about an employee just managing an email distro. You can keep this guy managed based off the state. So from there, we're just going to do an up arrow to get back to our filter. And I'm going to do property, and we're going to do state. So if I hit enter, we're going to get a bunch of information, but now we have the state in the option. It looks like they just have the abbreviations. And you can see there's CT, I think is Connecticut, Alabama, New York. I think there's like one other state. But this right here, it's not really easy on my eyes, / I can't really do much with this right now. So what I want to do is up arrow to go back to my filter. And I just want to do select state and hit enter. And now it's pulled back all of the states attached to the user accounts. But I want to take it a step further, and I just want the unique ones. Like I don't want the extra ones. I'm going to type in unique. And it looks like there's going to be 4 states. And it looks like there's a space. I guess there's some that are blank, which is probably going to mess with some of my stuff later on, but it should be fine. So from here, what I want to do is grab the abbreviations so I can put them into a variable, and I'm going to use those to create the groups and then to do some filtering to be able to add the users into said groups. So from here, I'm going to wrap this up into a variable, and we're going to do dot state. So now when I do, let's add the variable at the top. So we're just going to call it state because we want to use English to be able to properly like look at this as we go through it. And we'll hit enter. So it's going to kick back. Nothing came back because I'm creating my variable. But if I do state now and hit enter, now we have our New York, Alabama, Connecticut, and that Maine, whichever MA that one is, one of the states. So from here, we have a variable that has all of the state attributes from Active Directory. I could have done some more filtering, like maybe I didn't want to pull any disabled accounts, or maybe I wanted to pull from just a particular OU. But in this case, I want to grab all user accounts because there might be a chance where that state will come back. You could use this attribute for anything, department, title, this particular like whole overview. We use something similar at work. So basically just stole what we use and repurposed it for a different attribute. But by the end of this, we can create a function where we can just weaponize this. So not just creating the attribute for state, but say you want to make a function where it pulls a certain attribute. So maybe you want to create it for, like I said, the job title department. You can weaponize this where you just have a function where it says create groups, and only criteria that you need to type in is the attribute, and it will go through and create your AD groups and then add everything to the AD group. Okay, so now that we have state, we're going to work on getting the AD groups created and then adding the users into the group. So from there, what I like to use, also I'm going to go back, I like to use proper English, just so as we get into it, you'll see why. But we're going to do states. All right, so from here, we're going to do for each, and we're going to do for each state in states. We're going to do new AD group. And I like to do the famous tab, just because I don't always know what attribute you're going to set for a particular object. So in this case, I don't create AD groups that often. I know the mandatory ones, but for this example, I'm just going to tab and see which ones I want to set. So I want to set the description. I'm going to set the description as state, and then we're going to put the abbreviation after the state. So we're going to do state in double quotes, and then we're going to close it up. The next attribute is going to be, I think it's just an alphabetic, it's not set. So we're going to do display name, and we're just going to make it simple and do state. Got to set the group category. These parameters are already set, so if you just base tab, you can set whichever ones are available. I'm just going to do distribution, and then the group scope, we're going to do just universal. I think the last one is path, because what I want to do is put it into the OU that is for groups. Instead of just putting it in the main OU and Server Academy, I want to put it in a specified area. And this just helps you, of course, manage your Active Directory. But so this is how you would go in and like create a new group, is just right click. So instead of me manually doing that for this example is only 4, but say there was all 50 states, then you would have to do that 50 times. And then also adding the 4,000 users, you would have to do that as well. So you can see all of our users are here, but I'm going to show you this blank area because in a second, we're going to have some groups there. And then the path is where it's physically located. So instead of me typing all that out, I'm just going to copy and paste from one of the user accounts and just change the name. So just a quick. Oh, that was name. So we're going to do name. Forgot to add that. Attributes. So we have state, and then we're going to do path. And I just like to have this so I don't have to type all this out. I'm going to copy the path of it, and I'm just going to change where it says users to groups. Sure. Let's see. The property. Can you see it now? That's better. Like more or less? No worries. Alrighty, so let's see where we're at. Okay. So we have our for each setup where we had our variable that we pulled from the attributes of the states. And we're doing a for each where we're going to create a new group based off of the attribute state, which is the abbreviation of the state. So we went through and did your state and states for the for each. We did the new group in your squirrely brackets, and then we set the criteria that we wanted. We're using our variable state as it's going to pull from our variable. And I think that's everything. Let's see, I need to close my squirrely bracket. Let's see if this breaks anything or if it creates our groups. I think that's our empty one that I was talking about. When I pulled there, I think it pulled back a blank value. But let's see if we have some groups. There we go. So we have some 80 groups and we have our description set. So we know that it's a state one. We don't have mail enabled. I could have set the attribute as well and then enabled it through Exchange, but we're not going down that route. So I'm going to close this guy out, and you can see if we go into these and do members, it's empty. So the next thing that I want to do is generate the users in these groups. Okay, so from here we can do another for each. You can also, we could have put the whole thing in the whole section, but I kind of wanted to break it out to kind of talk about it as we go. Also, when I normally do like a for each where I'm touching a bunch of attributes or properties or objects or anything, I normally will test it out. Like I won't just, I would do it like one by one. Like I would do new AD group, and then I would go through description, test it out with the variable, and then go in and do it. In this case, we're creating some new groups. We're not touching anything that's already out there in AD. So that's just something that I like to do prior to all this, but just for sake of time, I typed it all out. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is generate the users. So we're gonna do another for each. And we're gonna do states. Also, at the end of this, we're gonna open it up and see who can do it better than me or give me feedback, which is also very fun. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to get the users associated with the states. So what I'm going to do is create a variable in my script block so I can utilize that. I know there's another way to do it. I was trying to figure it out, but I couldn't figure it out. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think that blank, there's like a blank space in my variable that I need to remove. But just for sake of time, I'm going to continue. So we're going to do $users. And we're going to basically run the for each 4 times for all the states. So I'm going to create a variable users, and then I'm going to use the variable state to basically utilize that to put the users in the AD groups. So we're going to do our get AD user. We're going to do filter. Let's see if we want to do squarely brackets. We'll do state equals, so I'm going to do like, and we'll do state. So we're going to close said squirrely bracket, and we're going to close the parentheses, and then I'm going to do dots. I'm going to do SAM account name to grab all the SAM account names for the users. If I was going to do anything else to the users, this would be useful in the for each, but in this case, we're just doing one action. But say we wanted to update the attribute for all the people that are in New York, they wanted to add the address in there. Like we could create a variable for the New York address. And as we're going through and adding the users to the AD group, we can go in and update the address to said New York office or organization. So from there, the next thing that I'm going to do is the actual add AD group. So just as if you were typing the line out, I'm going to hit enter and or shift enter and then add AD group member. we'll tab out and we'll get to identity, and our identity is going to be state. And then we're going to do members. And in this scenario, since you're using the get 80 or add 80 group member, our variable is going to work. In some scenarios, this wouldn't work depending on the object that you're working with, but it's going to see that it's a Active Directory user and be able to add those by the SAM account name. So I'm going to type in users. And I'm going to close my squirrely bracket for the for each. So we have our for each state in states. The action that we're going to run is grab all the users that have the associated state abbreviation. And then from there, that variable that you're creating is going to add the 80 group member based off the identity, which is the state variable. And then we're going to add the members from the variable that we set. I wanted to figure out how to just do it by the get 80 user and then pipe add 80 group member. But for the life of me, there was like an error that it did everything, but you saw like a big block of red text. And I was like, that doesn't look that pretty. We're not going to do that. I'm sure I was missing like a space or something very simple, but let's hit enter and see what happens. Crossing my fingers that this actually works. Is not defined. I think that's, yeah, there's like a blank entry in my variable. So it's spitting out one little red thing, which it's basically saying the variable is not set. So in the for each, there's a blank date that's in there that, so let's go into our New York, and there they all are. So it's basically generating it based off of the 80 attribute. Something that you can set up is basically set up a script that will basically run to keep those lists active or the 80 groups active. But earlier when I was saying you could weaponize this, you would basically combine your for eaches together and you can create a small function that will allow you to change out the attribute. So you would just have some generic variables in there, like attribute and attributes. And your function would be like function space create groups and users. And the only variable that you'd really need if you're just doing like a quick one would be your attribute. And then it would go through and create everything for you. It is 7:19. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, red is always fun. Pretty sure it's the blank variable state. Oops. What is it? Oh. Anyways, I know a way to get rid of the red. Beautiful. So that was my overview of a quick way to add it. Like I said, you can go in and update the PowerShell pieces where it can work for you and your organization, add in the different attributes where you can create either by job title, department, and things like that. That's one thing that I'm working on in my current role is trying to set up automation by the 80 groups that people on the crowd has force-fed me over the past like 6 years. So that's the reason that I want to do it. It's because they told me like 5 years ago, that would be cool. And would be cool, which is why I'm working on it. State no null. Interesting. So he sent us a cool. Thank you, Philip. All right, that was the majority of it. Like I said earlier, I wanted to open it up to see how you would do something different the way that I did it. I want to pick your brain on the one issue I was having where I couldn't actually get it to go with the get 80 user pipe add 80 group. So yeah, who wants to help me? Mhm. Cool, cool. So you were saying do a set 80 user instead of. Mhm. Restart. So someone recommended that I could do a set 80 user and do it by, I guess, the member of attribute. Is that what you're thinking, Sean?
Yeah.
So play around with, yeah. You can't spit it out like right away. You can run commands now. Do you want to take control of my screen? Who said that? Who said that? But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I want to stress them. The importance slash what I use is the server academy. I don't want to break stuff at my current company. So I go in here and they have a bunch of different scenarios in there where you can run through and they have the labs already pre-built for you. So I don't have to worry about like pulling up VirtualBox and going through the different images and stuff and keeping all that up to date. I just want to get in, have something with PowerShell, break something, try to fix it, and then once I figure it out in this fun environment, bring it back and break it at my. It's less than $20 a month. Yeah, I think I got a discount and I got it for free for like 3 months from some YouTuber that I found. So before I started diving deeper into PowerShell, I understood Active Directory or yeah. So I probably wouldn't have done it when I was first learning PowerShell plus Active Directory, but since I understood PowerShell and Active Directory to a little bit, that's why I did it. So I go in and actually make actual changes. But this one like is a new account. Like my old account, I had a bunch of other random stuff on there too, but you probably do it right away, really, because the lab's already pre-built for you. And on here you have like intros. It kind of goes over how it works. But for this particular lab, like it's not used for what I just did, but it has all the stuff I need. So it's basically a test. Like you can go in and you have to create some AD user accounts, reset the password, unlock the accounts, and it gets more complex as you go down. But I've only went through like half of this particular module, but it was like in PowerShell version 4, I think, which is pretty much the same. Thank you. Uh, did want to say I had the references up there, but also I wanted to thank a couple people in the crowd. The only reason that I've gotten interested into PowerShell or anything like that would be 3 folks out there. I'm not gonna say Rob but Chris, Bryce, and Sean, and Rob to a certain degree when I was a cubicle mate, just to make our life easier. But yeah, so just thank you guys. All right. Any questions? Cool. And thank you, thank you. Thank you all for listening to me speak for 45 minutes.